Welcome to a Dynamo Spotlight on Lendlease. Today, Kristin Barbato, co-founder and president of Dynamo Energy Hub, interviews Sara Neff, head of sustainability at Lendlease and a Dynamo advisory board member. Lendlease is a worldwide driver of greener and sustainably powered modern buildings.
There's that snazzy countdown.
No, so exciting.
Hello from Austin,
Hello.
Texas.
Hello from Los Angeles. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, you too. We had a great Climate Week event and seeing you was terrific. Thank you so much for coming out. It's always good to see you and your team.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a fantastic, I think it's the best Climate Week we've had. I feel like for the first time, we're really seeing great collaboration between the public and private sector. I've seen a lot of hesitation around that from both sides for a long time. And now at Climate Week, we saw, Department of Energy talking to business. We saw a lot of that, which was really exciting. It's just been a really sea change into how I've seen that happen in the past.
And that's good because it's with you and your expertise and experience that you've had in a long time in this building efficiency, sustainability sector. There have been so many changes that have happened as people are starting to get comfortable with what is standard. How do you think about what are types of solutions actually work for what kinds of situations and operations?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that this is hopefully getting to a point where there's some standards or at least commonality of ways people can think about what they're doing, how they're measuring it, and what types of solutions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we are coalescing around standards, but for example, the White House wants to have their definition of zero emission buildings. It's not like EPA doesn't already have Energy Star. It's not like DOE didn't already have Better Buildings Challenge. It's not like the U.S. Green Building Council didn't have LEED, right? And so there keeps being this sense of like we need a better one. It's not good enough. So I don't think this process is ever done. One of the things I am excited about is now the standards are moving towards electrification. That goes a lot to what Dynamo is working on, because if we're going to have buildings that don't use natural gas, they need different electricity. We need larger amounts of renewable electricity to cover those emissions. They need batteries to be grid interactive, and all of that flows through Dynamo.
Oh, thanks. That's we love to hear it. And so let's get into some of these questions that we have for you to feature what's going on with you and your team at Lendlease. So
Fantastic.
let's start with tell us about Lendlease and what it is you're doing and your role in the energy transition.
Absolutely. So Lendlease is a global real estate company with Australian heritage. And in the Americas region, we are a bunch of different things. We are a pure construction business, about $2 billion a year. We are the largest operators of military housing, all their hotels. And then we have a investment management development platform where we raise money with foreign pension funds, buy land, develop to hold in the long term. Dynamo, and the energy transition sort of flows through all of that. So we at Lendlease have the goal of being absolute zero across every scope of carbon by 2040, which is crazy. Being zero scope 3 is a lot. But we also have the commitment to being 100% renewable electricity by 2030 and net neutrally operating by 2025. And so it is my role to procure us enough power to get us to 100% renewable electricity. It's my job to catalyze the market transformation. So things like all electric construction equipment, things like, zero carbon concrete exist in 2040. None of those things is sort of universally available now. So that's the role in the energy transition, which is to meet our short-term goals via efficiency, via power procurement, via the things we know how to do, and then to catalyze the market transformation so that when we turn around in 2030, 2035, and 2040, the market is there for what we need.
Yeah. And I would say that, that's fantastic. And we love to see that Lendlease is leading on this. I would suggest, and tell me if you agree, that we're somewhere in this midstream area where the initial types of immediate types of solutions for buildings, energy efficient lighting, HVAC, that I think we're past it. And we're almost in this transitional phase where we're looking at what can we do to make sure that we've got some baseline solutions from these early initial types of metrics and measures to the longer term, like building efficiency, zero carbon concrete. Like I kind of think of us in this middle stage here. What do you think about that?
I totally agree with you. We're just out of the pilot stage. I feel like real estate got stuck for a decade and a half of we're going to pilot this one little thing here, we're going to pilot this little thing here. And that's not, we're past that. Now we have everything we need to scale. There's so many building efficiency technologies out there. We have them, they can get going, we can just go. So first of all, I think as the Department of Energy would say, like the TRL, the technology readiness level,
Right.
and it was like 8, right? 8 or 9, right? We're ready to go. I would say the adoption readiness level, real estate is always slow to adopt stuff. There's some, things that make that a little bit difficult, but overall, I think we're ready to go. Like that's fine. What the other thing that's changed is thinking about portfolios and then connecting that to how we think about buildings. Because forever we had, building level energy audits, building level projects, and then these portfolio targets, and nothing that was connecting those things. And now I think I'm finally seeing, and I know Department of Energy is working on this, as are a bunch of people at Dynamo. How do we actually connect the portfolio to the asset? And then it's also that we are thinking of our buildings as players in the energy transition. People so used to think of like, well, I just have to do efficiency and maximize my solar on site. And you're like, no, it's time to go do big offsite purchases of renewable power. It's time to go figure out how you interact with the grid. It's time, for example, to be how the electric vehicle, transformation happens, because you're hosting all the charging. And so I think real estate is slowly getting into the place where it thinks of itself as part of the energy transition at all, as opposed to just something that those other industries do.
Yeah, well, that's actually something that I was going to ask you a little bit about, what makes you and Lendlease unique. And I would say that's definitely part of it, because you have the operations where you can scale these solutions through them, and you're doing that. You're making real inroads into doing that. Any
Exactly.
other ideas of how is Lendlease unique in this transition?
Lendlease is unique in a bunch of ways. One is we have the purchasing power, right? And so one of the things you, for example, read the DOE liftoff reports, which I know we're talked about a lot at Dynamo
Right.
Climate Week, was this need for the private sector to put its purchasing power behind the energy transition, and we're absolutely in a place to do that. For example, all electric construction equipment, not probably something that a lot of your viewers don't think about, but really, really important. We have to stop using fuel in that and have to start using renewable electricity. Well, we have enough construction projects that we can actually incentivize tool manufacturers to start doing that. We're seeing that. We have our first project, now we have our second, now we have our third, right? We're seeing this all happen. The other thing I just love about Lendlease, which makes us unique, is like, okay, let's go figure it out. So for example, I have a project where it's as many projects are, the land is very constrained, but it needs a battery. And I came to them with the idea of like, let's put the battery on the roof, which like has not been done as far as I know in commercial and industrial. And instead of the answer being no, the answer was, all right, Sarah, go study it. And the answer was it was totally feasible. And let's do the same thing with geothermal, which I can't take credit for. We have a big geothermal project in Brooklyn. Somebody on the development operations team said, you know what, I think the project is good for geothermal. Instead of Lendlease saying, you know what, that's crazy, never going to happen, what are you talking about? It was, all right, go figure that out. And now we have the largest geothermal facility coming out of the ground for any residential project, I think, in North America, certainly in New York. So it's sort of this openness to let's go see if we can figure it out that makes us, I think, well poised to help catalyze important changes in the energy transition.
Yeah, that's definitely a cultural aspect of what Lendlease is doing. Instead of saying no, you're saying how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
That's great.
Yeah.
So in that line, what are some of the macro trends that you're seeing that are affecting your operations, and why you're making these decisions?
Yeah. So some are good and some are bad. It is a tough time in the energy markets right now. It's very hard to do deals that pencil. And so, at Greenbuild post Climate Week, getting together with a lot of real estate owners, people are really having to scrape bottoms of barrels and then find new barrels. It's one of the reasons I appreciate Dynamo, I'm like, here's how constrained I am. It's hard to find a power purchase agreement that pencils in the US right now for a variety of reasons. So that's a macro trend that's affecting us, and I think is slowing down our ability to get to 100% renewable electricity. On the other hand, one of the things I'm seeing as a macro trend is a real change in materials. We have, and this is absolutely part of energy, right? So we think of like, oh, what does steel have to do with me? Well, it has to do a lot with everything that Dynamo does, because what's happening, for example, in steel is that the steel companies are electrifying the process through which they make steel. And then what they want is enough renewable power to cover that. Okay. So, now we need large amounts of renewable electricity in order to enable that process. And we're seeing that across materials, and it's happening really fast. There's a very low carbon steel product that last year was at a 33% premium. This year it's at a 2% premium. Because again, yes, we're seeing that happen really quickly because people have been able to secure various forms of renewables. And there's obviously a lot of different feelings about that. Is hydro okay? Is nuclear okay?
Mhm.
What if it's not in the US? What if it's in Canada? These are all things people are grappling with. And that's exactly what the Dynamo members are grappling with.
Yeah, and it's great to hear you say that, because as you're getting more demand for different types of solutions, it is prompting the solution providers to come up with ways to solve those problems, which is then commoditizing almost, in an effect, the pricing. So that's how you're seeing some of the pricing drop. So those premiums aren't as high anymore, which is fantastic. Would you also say that IRA is helping in some of these deals to pencil?
What a question you have asked. Um, a
Can of
lot of
worms.
time and week on this subject. So the short answer to your question is that there has been a lot of movement in the public sector
Okay.
that has been able to leverage the IRA. And that is great. And we're seeing the benefits of, we're going to see the benefits of that. When, for example, the Port of Long Beach was able to do a lot of electrification work through IRA money, as an example. So that's obviously helping with the energy transition. The private sector in real estate is having more difficulty unlocking IRA funds.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons. For example, my geothermal facility in Brooklyn can't apply for IRA funds, and so it totally qualifies, but until the project is put into service. Okay, well, we spent the
Oh,
money 2 years ago. It's not getting put into service until 26. So, that's a long lead time, and, who knows what's still going to be available. So is that going to be
right.
able to change an investment decision for the next geothermal project? I don't know. So we are actively working, with various parts of our government that have, but like I said, with public-private partnerships that have reached out to us. We've been talking to Senator's office. We've talked to the White House. We've talked to other, other departments within the government about what can we do to make this better. I'm having ongoing conversations right now. So what I will say that there is this real hunger to collaborate and be like, okay, what are these barriers? For example, what's making it hard for low carbon concrete companies to, access loan program office or industrial grant money? We're having those conversations right now. So there's been a lot that's been really good about the IRA for a cautious sector that isn't used to doing things like offtake agreements for materials. That's very unusual. It's been a little bit of a disconnect. I think the kinks will all get worked out. This is still very, very new, but I think we need a lot more demonstration projects before you'll see real estate make these big multi-million-dollar decisions based on the idea that, they'll be able to realize IRA funds.
I think that makes sense. And yes, I've been hearing some of the same things over the course of our summit in New York, just
Yep.
about a week ago. This exact topic coming up and saying the dollars from IRA are there but haven't quite been realized yet because of some of these issues. Yeah. Okay.
So
But
true.
they're
It's
there.
so frustrating. They're there, and we know the problems they have to solve, and they're there to solve those problems, and yet getting everything
So cool.
connected.
Yeah.
It's
But
such an exciting time.
but it is
Yeah,
exciting seeing that some of these demonstration projects are going to be the bridge to that. So that I think is very
exactly.
good. Um, Let me ask you, what are some of the big things that are on your horizon right now? Like, what's a big project you want to highlight, or something that you're looking to accomplish? A big couple of goals.
Yeah. So there's a couple. One, again, we have to do this deal to get Lendlease to 100% renewable electricity.
Right.
So that's very exciting to get the whole region. We're really excited about collaborating across the supply chain. For example, I don't think the fit is going to work, but the fact that I was like on the phone, set up a call between like a zero carbon Portland cement replacement company and the loan program office and me, like this is the kind of collaboration up and down the supply chain I've never seen before. We have to figure out how to sort of get more of those projects across the finish line. I've been helping a bunch of sort of folks with their applications, so I really hope some of them get the green light soon. So that would be really, really exciting. We're very excited to do this battery project I was talking to you about. I was really excited about this geothermal facility, really excited about just more green leasing. And then the thing that's, I think, the most exciting that I'm working on is Lendlease just published its Scope 3 protocol. So most companies' goals are just around decarbonizing Scope 1 and Scope 2, the energy we control directly, the fuels and the electricity. If you're anything like us, most of your emissions are in your Scope 3, and
Correct.
yet nobody's making any targets around this. Nobody's setting any, like, we'll have this all at least neutral by this time. So we have published our Scope 3 protocol. We have made it available to the industry. I'm sort of on the roadshow right now talking about it. We're going to do some workshops to help other people implement. And the idea is, all right, guys, it is knowable what is in your Scope 3. This is not a mystery anymore. You can totally do this. You don't need to hire a consultant if you don't want to, although you can. Let's go inventory them. Let's figure out what we're sort of wrangling, and then let's set some targets and let's go. Not to say that you shouldn't be doing Scope 3 work before you've set a target, but if that's what's holding you back, no need to hold you back anymore. So those are some exciting things.
And this is actually a great point when you're looking at Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. Scope 3 is almost a culmination of what you've been trying to define for yourself and others. So it's, when you're thinking about how you get to some of those higher level metrics and goals, collaboration is key. You can't do it just alone. It really requires that whole supply chain. So it's good to hear that you're having these conversations.
Yeah, it's been really interesting.
Yeah, and not easy, but the more that you're starting to think about your own goals, requirements, capabilities, limitations, you start to fill in the blanks with how others can help fill in those blanks.
Absolutely. It very much gives you the license to really collaborate with your supply chain, to say, okay, all right, concrete, what do we need to do? Okay, steel, what do we need to do? Okay, how do we start electrifying military housing? How do we transition to all electric vehicles? Those are major things we have to consider. But when Scope 3 is in there, hey, how do we collaborate with aviation if by 2040 we need zero carbon flights, right? So those are all really exciting things. All conversations that we had during Climate Week. It was really fun to talk to the aviation companies about what they're doing. It really gives you the mandate to look beyond your direct business, to look at the broader market.
Yes. And like I was going to say, along those lines, when I first met you many years ago, you were one of the only solution consumers in the room. You were one of the people who was there was a lot of solution providers. Mm-hmm. And what's been great is to see you lead from the front in terms of how you can be an example of someone that is leveraging many different types of solutions within your portfolios that you manage. So what I'm very proud of is, you've been very generous with your compliments of Dynamo thus far, but my final question to you is, how has Dynamo helped enable you to do this? And I know you've had some really good deals that you've been able to make through the Dynamo network, which is where this is where it's at, right?
It's totally where it's at. So when I was able to get my last company to carbon neutrally operating, that was a Dynamo deal. The current deal I'm working on to get the current company to 100% renewable electricity is a Dynamo deal. And one of the, I'll tell you one anecdote, which was, we're at the reception at Climate Week, the Dynamo reception, and there's this esoteric issue where I need some incentives to cover that battery problem, the battery installation I want to do. But my problem is that these incentives flow through the gas company in this area, and my building is all electric. I'm not a gas customer. And I was complaining about this essentially to a Dynamo member who said, I know who you should talk to, and just walked me over to the crudité table where the person has expertise in this particular area and knows who at the California Energy Commission I need to talk to about this issue. It just happens every time. I feel like it's one of those things with Dynamo where I put into the Dynamo universe, I have this problem I need to solve. And then the Dynamo universe comes back because my deals are unusual. And sometimes they're much smaller than you want to work with, or there's other constraints, or we're Australian and we're traded on a different stock exchange. The Dynamo folks are always willing to help. And it's been so fun, and it's made it so much easier for me to be able to source deals. It's why I insisted, on keeping my Dynamo membership when I switched jobs, because I said, this is how we do the energy transition. This is a trusted network, and this is how we're going to find who we need to work with to meet our goals.
And that conversation was kind of random. You're just that's why it's so important it's just be in the room, right?
I know. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Literally, we're just, what are you working on? Can I complain to you about the fact that I'm doing the right thing by not using gas, and now I can't get this incentive? Go talk to this person, who, by the way, proactively followed up with me afterwards, and it's
love it.
So it's great.
I love to hear these stories. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. Well, as always, such a pleasure to talk with you and hear about what you're doing at Lendlease. You're definitely a leader to follow, and very, very happy to know you on a personal level. You're one of those really good eggs, lady.
Oh, thank you. You're a good egg right back, Kristin. No, seriously, the fact that Dynamo continues to attract really interesting companies doing really cutting edge work is why, and the conversation is never the same, right? I mean,
No.
it is so rapidly evolving that I feel like I can't miss an event because then I won't know what's happening next. So,
Oh, yeah,
so
that's really the point. We want to make sure that the conversation is relevant, and advancing
yes,
everything that people are doing within their own companies. And so that's why it is important to be in the room and have the
yes,
conversations and start developing those trusted relationships like we have with you over the years. So again,
yes,
Sarah, thank you very much for joining me on this little chat. It's always a pleasure talking with you. Smiling
oh,
face.
thank you so much for having me. This has been the highlight of my day.
You bet. All right. Any last words?
We are just excited we're so on the brink of just fantastic climate action. And I think with this kind of collaboration that you see with Dynamo, we're just going to see rapid change very quickly. I just see this amazing J curve in climate action coming out of this group.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, well, take care, and we will see you at the next Dynamo event.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
This has been a Dynamo Spotlight on Lendlease. You can find more of Dynamo's work on our website, dynamoenergyhub.com, as well as LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.